So here it is, the Graco Finish Pro HVLP 9.5 paint sprayer. I love this thing. Real quick, you have the on and off power switch, a pretty big dust filter. You got your pressure regulator, how much air you want pushing out of this machine. For the power switch also, it does have on and off automatic. So whenever you stop pressing the trigger, it'll automatically shut off and you don't have to worry about that. So there it is. And here's your guns. Real nice, heavy duty, durable stainless steel, I believe, with a chrome finish. Nice tip so you can control your spray width, and you get your cup. The capacity is a quart of paint. All right, so let's dive right on into it. Get this thing ready to paint. Whenever I store my gun, I like to have it clean it out, have it sitting in water or my cleaning solution. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just rinsing it off. It does come with a little filter that goes right there, but you don't really need it. And I personally like using this strainer. You do need the cup liners. You can get those pretty much anywhere fairly cheap. Usually comes in about 6 or 10 packs, just whatever you prefer. And like I said, I prefer to use this strainer, make sure nothing's getting in there. It works a little better to me, and you don't have to worry about those little filters that come with the cup. They are expensive. They're about 20 to 30 bucks a pop, and I believe they only come in like packs of 2 or 3, and you got to swap them out quite frequently. So this is an alternative solution to me that works very well. Just pour your paint in there and you just rinse it out, clean it out seamlessly with water once you're done with it, so you can reuse it later. Yeah, now that that's done, like I said, I just have my bucket of water to the side and I'm just rinsing it off, giving it a couple of dips and letting it sit in there. Is good to go until I need it again. So one of the things about this gun is you do need to thin, no matter what you're putting in there, unless you're putting in a finish like a lacquer or a polyurethane, something that's already naturally thin. You do have to thin this quite a lot, which means you're going to have to put on a couple of more coats, or you're going to have to be happy with the paint not being as fine or as dark as your sample or you want it to be. So that is one sort of a setback to me, that you do have to thin it enough to come out of that nozzle just smoothly and efficiently. Now we're ready to put it back together, and again, everything just pops right into place. Sometimes that cup will expand on you depending on the temperatures outside and where you're storing it. So it could be a challenge sometimes, but it's not too difficult to fix. I would just make sure you store the cup liners somewhere where humidity isn't just hurting it all the time. It does come with a 20-foot hose, plenty of room to roam around and do what you need to do. Just very flexible. That hose right there on the end, that little 6-foot section, that's your flexible part. The rest of it is a little tougher, but that's really all you need to be able to move around in spaces and stuff like that. So the design is good, but again, with that hose being so flexible, it is fragile. So protect it because it is expensive. All right, and one thing you do want to do before you actually spray is because it works on pressure. That air pressurizes that liner inside, squeezes it pretty much. So you just want to make sure your fluid's coming out the way that you want it to, and that's when you want to adjust your settings. All right, so let's get going. Let's look how smooth that is, nice and consistent. Beautiful. One thing I will say, so right here you can see those little blotchy spots. I should have thinned this out a little bit more. It's fine. I'm going to do a light sand, and on my second coat I will thin it out a bit more. But that's how you can tell if you do need to thin it. Just those little fine ripples that you see. This thing sprays so much better than what I'm doing right now. And honestly, this looks good as well, but it can do so much better. You just really have to know how much you need to thin your product depending on the type of paint that you're using. And here I'm just showing you different angles that this nozzle can spray as well, vertically, horizontally, upside down. This thing truly is a beast. So I wanted to kind of demonstrate how easy this gun is to use. This is my wife putting on the coat. She's never used this sprayer before. This is her very, very first time, and it's seamless. You just kind of have to have somewhat of a steady hand, and it's seamless. And now that we're a little closer, you can kind of see the little ridges that I'm talking about. You don't want that. Like I said, these are going to be lightly sanded again and another coat with thinner paint, but it can be a lot smoother than this. And here's a close-up, still beautiful, even not thinning it as much as I should have. One thing I want to hit on first that I forgot to do, I did it off camera, is show you how easy it is to clean this gun. In the video, you can see that it had paint all over it, and it practically looks brand new now. And I want to give thanks to Brush Cleaner. Highly recommend, if you paint, keep this stuff on hand. You just let it sit for about 5 minutes, and whatever your product is you have on here, whether it's clear coat, lacquer, paint, whatever it is, this stuff makes cleanup very, very easy, a lot easier than paint thinner or acetone. So I highly recommend this. The only thing that I would add to that is that make sure that you thoroughly rinse off your product if you're going to use this, because it will leave a yellowish tint if you don't thoroughly rinse this off. So let's jump into it. Pros and cons. Pros: easy to use. Storage is seamless. As you can see, my wife used this for the very first time. It was easy to control. She felt comfortable with it, and it did the job. It did everything that we wanted, expected, and needed it to do. So simplicity, that's what I love about this gun. I personally use this mainly now just for my varnishes, my paint thinner, or not paint thinner, but my polyurethane, my lacquer, and my stains. And so I don't necessarily, I did it to show you guys in this video how it paints. And I wish I would have thinned it out a little more, because like I said, you would have it can produce a much, much better, smoother, finer finish. So I apologize for that. But I use it for my finishes, because you don't need to thin it, okay? I take that out of my equation. I have my bigger GX19 down there to do that. But anyway, back to the pros. Like I said, this thing is very easy to use. It's very mobile, and you just have tons of settings on here. And I love the smart start and stop feature on there, so you don't ever have to turn this gun off per se. It automatically shuts down as long as you're not pressing that trigger. So some cons about this gun, okay? One thing is you can only use a cord. So, and I wouldn't recommend doing a huge project with this, because it only uses a cord, and you have to keep in mind with that cord, if you're putting a thick product in here, you have to thin it down. So you're getting a little bit less than a quart out of that. And of course you have to stop, take it down, break it down, pour your product back in there, and repeat the whole process over again. So it's a convenient gun because it is small, it's light, it's easy to use. So I guess you have to take the good with the bad with it only being able to hold a quart. So not really a con, but still a con, right? If you're doing a bigger product. Again, if you're doing a finish, beautiful. Another thing, this is a very expensive piece of equipment, which I'm not against at all investing in the right tools to do the job well. What I mean by that though, the parts are extremely expensive in my opinion. Just this hose alone is about 10 bucks. And granted, you can probably substitute this for something you can find at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. But this, just to give you an example, this hose is about 10 bucks and it goes up from there. The filters, outside of the cup liners and things of that nature, they're around 30 bucks just starting at. This hose alone, this hose setup is about 120 bucks. So again, it is very expensive for the parts, but outside of that, they're hard to find. They're very, very, very hard to find. The little strainer that's on the inside of the cup that I substituted with my personal strainer, that was part of the reason why I did that, because once you go through your pack of 3, then you have to search for some more, and they're not always gonna be on the Graco site. So yeah, outside of that, on a scale of 1 through 10, I would give this gun, for paint, I would give this a 5. For finishes, I would give it an 8, okay? And again, for the simple reason, with my finishes, my lacquers, my polyurethane, my stain, I don't have to thin it. I pour, I go, it lays it on as smooth as I need it to be. With my paint, it requires a lot more work. I have to thin it a lot more. I have to put on a lot more coats. And so that means whenever I do paint, if I don't do the perfect ratio every time, once I go and touch up at a client's house, me dipping a paintbrush into the paint bucket and touching up, it's gonna be much darker than what I sprayed on, which could lead to a problem and potentially having to repaint the entire thing if there are touch-ups needed. Overall, I like the gun. I'm glad that I have it. I wouldn't recommend using it for big projects. I like it more for the finishes, and yeah, so that's it. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, if there's something that I left out about the gun, please let me know, and I hope this video was helpful.